Hey, Chris Brush here for chrisbrushdrums.com, and today I'm super excited because I have finally made time to do a video I've been wanting to do for a while. And that video addresses the question, what does a session player do? What does a session player bring to the table? I get so many tracks over the internet these days, as do so many of my friends who play different instruments. What should someone expect when they send their tracks off to someone to be recorded? Especially when you're sending it to someone you've never met before over the internet. And my goal is hopefully show you what a recording professional brings to that process that you may or may not be aware of, so you can get the most from your experience with whoever it is that you hire. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to a more or less traditional recording experience with a group of people in a larger commercial facility cutting an album. You'll get to see how people get great results in a very quick amount of time. And I'm going to bring you back here to Plethertone in Nashville, where I do all my work. And we're going to play drums on a couple different songs by a couple different artists. And I'm going to show you how I do what I do in that environment. And there are many differences and similarities. We'll talk about some of those. But hopefully in the process, you can learn a little bit more about what a session player brings to the table. More importantly, what a recording professional can bring to your tracks. Again, whoever you're able to hire, and how you can get the most out of that experience. So let's get started. Hey, Chris Brush here at Blackbird Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. We're in Studio D, a beautiful, beautiful room. And we're working for the artist Marta Oliasz, a young Polish artist who's trying to do kind of a pop album with some country elements to it. I'm here right now sitting at the drum kit. Got all my electronics set up and stuff to go, and we're ready to rock. I've set up this simple iPad as a camera to kind of video a little bit of what's going on, hopefully give people a better idea of what a typical session tends to look like. There are so many different kinds of sessions, and this is by no means the only way that things happen. But this is a lot more typical of what you see in a music town like New York, Nashville, LA, as opposed to what I'm doing a lot of times when I'm getting tracks for people over the internet. So hopefully this will be fun and educational. In this particular session, we were laying down basic rhythm tracks for Marta's EP. A bassist, keyboardist, and myself were booked for the day. The producer played guitars, and the artist sang scratch vocals while we tracked. Sessions tend to be divided into equal time blocks, so from 10 to 2, from 2 to 6, and from 6 to 10. This particular time we were doing 5 songs over 2 sessions. We would show up early enough in the morning to get set up and get sounds with the engineer, get our coffee, whatever. Around 10, we all headed into the control room, met the artist, and gathered to listen to the demo, the first song. The producer gave us all charts written in the Nashville number system, which is a way of writing charts where all the chords are represented with numbers, so it's independent of keys in case the key should need to change later for any reason. The demos we were listening to were really simple scratch recordings, and so there was no skeleton of a drum, bass, or keyboard part for any of us. We spent a few minutes listening, making notes, asking questions, and conceiving together how we would play the songs. Things like the feel, the tempo, the arrangement, coming up with different potential ideas. After that, we headed into the tracking room, would count off, and start laying down takes. For each song, we would record a basic track set of acoustic, bass, drums, and keys, and here's what that sounded like. After about 3 or 4 takes, it was time to do some overdubs. We had a good basis for the song, so we would add some more instrument parts. On this tune, I think I added some simple loop and electronic stuff. The keyboardist laid down a trance-like pad, and the producer doubled his acoustic parts. The next day after we were done, the producer went back in and laid down all sorts of electric guitars, and the artist sang the final vocals. And here's what all that came together sounding like. And just a quick note, this isn't a final mix. It's probably not going to appear on her album this way. This is just a glammed up rough to kind of give you an idea while you're watching this video of what everything sounded like and how it fit together. And we're back. If I edited things properly, what you saw was myself and a group of other session musicians at Blackbird Studio cutting on a custom project for Polish artist Marta Oliasz, and I had to ask her so many times how to pronounce her name. I really hope that I did that correctly. Forgiveness if I did not. What I would love for you to take away, especially if you've never seen a lot of sessions happen, is how a group of musicians comes in the morning with no idea what they're about to do. They get a chart from the producer and the artist. They listen to a demo. In this case, I think it was an iPhone recording of an acoustic guitar and a vocal. Make notes and talk about the song, and then go out and about 3 or 4 takes have the basis of what's going to be a record, and hopefully a good sounding record. And not to say that how that session went down is how they all go down. Sometimes you spend an entire day on a song. It depends on the budget, depends on the timeline, depends on a lot of different things. So don't look at that example and say this is how it's all supposed to work. That's not at all the case. What I'm trying to show you is the common thread through most of those sessions is a group of people producing themselves as they play without all the time a lot of direction, and coming up with a result that's probably greater than any one of us could do separately. That said, I'm going to bring that experience, that know-how to what I do here at Plethrotone, and I'm going to play drums on 2 different songs. Actually, they couldn't be more different, and that's perfect for today. From 2 different artists that sent stuff to me over the internet. So we're going to see how that differs from what you just saw. Let's get going. All right, so the first thing I do when I get a song from a client is I pull up their tracks and put their stems into my recording template. I've already got my drum tracks laid out, ready to go. This song, before I did the video, I went ahead and put in markers. I've already got my chart out by the kit. But for the benefit of this video, I'm going to listen to a little bit of the song with you and talk to you a little bit about my process of what I'm thinking. So here's what I got for this really hard rock song. It's going to be a lot of fun to play. Let's see what we have here. Couple bars, count off. Oh, it reminds me a little bit of Bob Mould. You guys, anybody know Bob Mould? Extra points if you do. Pretty roomy, like programmed drums to kind of say, hey, this is what I want. Pretty standard pattern though. We'll see if we can't mess with that a little bit. Yeah, same thing, just a little tighter on the hat. So we'll see if we'll give them a version kind of like this, but then we'll do one a little bit more interesting. Skip ahead to the chorus, see if there's anything different. Seems like pretty much the same thing. Yeah, long turnaround. I will say, I love the guitars are actually pretty cool. Got this kind of angry, there's like a little bit of the 90s in there, but not so much where someone's gonna call foul on it. All right, well, let's go out to the kit and see what we can do. Okay, here we are at the kit, and I'm going to go ahead and do a first take. I'm going to keep this one pretty simple, and actually I'm going to try to adhere to the programming that's there. Sometimes I don't get any programming guides at all, and that's okay. Sometimes the drum programming's there, and the guys are just like, hey, I cut it up and just made loops, do whatever you want. Sometimes they say, I want exactly what's on that, and I usually charge a little extra for my time to transcribe that. And in this case, there was no real direction given one way or the other. So I'm going to go ahead and give the option to the artist and producer to have what they had on the programming, which is a pretty simple thing. There's not a lot of tom fills, mostly just snare work and a big beat, big rock thing. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so now we're going to do a second take. I went into the control room after the first take, made sure the sounds worked for everything, and now I'm going to try to play it a little more free. I'm going to pretend like I never heard any of the program drums, and I was just sent the vocals and the guitar tracks, and they said, do whatever you want. They may absolutely hate it, but I'm going to give them the option anyway. I'm going to add a few more tom fills in. I'm going to play it a little more freely, try to add some more interest and dynamics, maybe a little bit of ear candy, just to give a different interpretation. And let's see how that goes. Okay, so for the first take, I played the bridge pretty straight. The second take, I tried a halftime thing. That still may be a little too rockin'. It may not come down enough. So what I'm going to do this time, I had this idea where I'm going to play essentially two parts that will go together. But first, I'm going to lay down a basic track of just mainly 4 on the floor for the first part of the bridge. Then I'm going to add in some toms and some snare. Keep it pretty sparse, though, because there's another overdub that I hear on top of this that I'll do in a second. So here's that first part. I'm going to start from the, few bars before the bridge. Okay, so I just did a bridge take where I stayed 4 on the floor for the most part, let the song kind of dip, and then built it back up with some toms and some snare, and then I hit a pause before going into the chorus. So there's kind of this big suck in of breath and this drop when the chorus came in. Now what I'm going to try is doing a thing with rims. This idea that I heard in my head, and it's going to go over the 4 on the floor part especially. And it may stay in the whole rest of the bridge. I'll give it to the artist and probably remove the mics that aren't applicable, such as the hi-hat, the kicks, things like that. It'll all make sense in a minute. You won't hear what I just played this time while I'm playing over it, but I'll let you hear it completely after it's done. So let's see if this works. I'm going to start a couple measures before the bridge. Okay, I have one more idea for this song. Sometimes a song is really self-explanatory and doesn't need a lot of extra ideas or ear candy or even arrangement changes. But every now and then there's a song that comes along and you just have a lot of ideas for, and this song is one of those. I don't know if they're going to re-record the guitars and things after I send them drums, but in case they do, I'm going to give them this arrangement change option that they can use. They may hate it, and in which case they don't have to use it at all. But I noticed the last take, what we've been working with is a bridge part where I pause the last couple of measures going into that last chorus to kind of have a part where your breath sucks in before hitting the chorus really hard, which is cool. But what if we took that just one step further and instead of pausing, we built up into that last chorus, like it's going to be huge, and then we just hit diamonds on the cymbals to kind of do a rock breakdown thing. And diamonds, it's a session term, maybe just a Nashville session term. Doesn't matter. It usually applies to guitar players striking a chord and then treating that like a whole note. They don't play any other rhythms or anything for a bar. It's kind of a bang, and they let it ring. Right now, I'm going to apply that term to the cymbals, and I'm just going to hit kick and cymbals at the same time, giving kind of a rock breakdown. I'm talking too much. It's going to make sense. Let's see what happens. I'm going to start in about halfway through the bridge, try to pick up where we left off. I'll comp it together later. All right, here we are back at the Pro Tools screen and the control surface for the second song. Totally different vibe, very much an Americana song. It's a cool tune called Settle Down Good. We're going to check it out. It's just like the other song. I've gone ahead and put in my markers. I've got my drum template up. But before we go out there and cut anything, I'm going to listen down here for your benefit and talk through some of the things that I think I'm going to try to achieve on the kit. So let's take a listen. Okay, it's got this kind of, I think it's programmed MIDI drums as kind of a guide track, but it sounds like a 4 on the floor thing. And when I was listening through the first time, it didn't strike me as something that should be a kick.
Oh, settle down, I'll put you in my heart.
Pretty simple getting started. Probably put in some clap overdubs they can layer if they want. Start another band, playboy. So, pretty simple groove. Interesting thing about the drums, it's kind of a mix, it's a stem of all the different percussion elements. So there's like claps and might be some other things in there. There's definitely a MIDI drum part, kick and snare and hat, and there's also like a 16th note pattern. And in talking to the artist, we talked back and forth on whether we should try to make that part of the drum set or whether we should do that with separate instruments. So I'm going to give him several different ideas. There's a little 4 on the floor thing again. See, it doesn't sound like a kick drum. I think I'm going to do something creative and fun there.
Well, I drank myself to killing back, but now I'm pissing clean.
But you know, that's all we have for this tune. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. The fun part is that this is a tune that lends itself toward a lot of percussion overdubs, and the artist paid for a custom master session, so we're going to kind of throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. All right, let's go out to the kit. All right, here we are at the kit. We're ready to do the second song. The client paid for a custom master and wanted really different drum sounds, so we went ahead and switched out the kit. We've got my 1970 Ludwig right here. The mid-90s is more of like a rock pop thing, a little higher fi. This is going to be a little grittier and dirtier, and it's really fun to play. So this song is kind of an Americana song. It has some melodic throwbacks to Motown in there. We'll see if we can imply a little bit at the groove without hopping over the genre rails and derailing and killing listeners. That was dark. At this point, we're going to play the first take. It's going to be pretty close to kind of his ideas, what he programmed. Again, giving him the option to hear what he programmed. But it's going to be really simple, mostly snare based, very simple fills, and it's kind of just about the groove and moving the song along. The cool thing is this has a lot of extra percussion parts that again comes with the custom session. Is something the client really wanted. So I'm purposely leaving space for stuff to go on top later, and you'll see that. All right, here we go. Take one. I'll start midway through the verse because there's some Perc stuff happening all the way up until then.
Raise me up in lithium, God knows I need a friend. In a hot spring, new dream, we'll start another band. Play it, boys. Oh, remember when I was just a kid. Well, I'm sorry that I put you through the life I never lived. About drowning when I was swimming with the sharks in a hot spring in Arkansas on a river in the dark. I'm gonna settle down.
Okay, so we just did a first take, really pretty simple tune. Now I'm going to do a second take and give him a little bit extra spice if he wants that. I noticed in his programming he had this kind of 16th note pattern going on with the snare. I'm going to give him an option of that where I'm playing it on a different snare as an overdub and then with brushes. So if he wants to include that with kind of the last take that I did, he can. But I'm going to try to put them both together as best I can. And let's see if that changes the groove or makes it feel cool. Maybe he won't need the overdub. Anyway, let's try that. Same starting point here.
Raise me up in lithium, God knows I need a friend. In a hot spring, new dream, we'll start another band. Play it, boys. Oh, remember when I was just a kid. Well, I'm sorry that I put you through the life I never lived. About drowning deep when I was swimming with the sharks in a hot spring in Arkansas on a river in the dark. I'm gonna settle down and do what I should. There's a girl that's gonna love me.
Okay, so now that we have the main drum takes down, I'm going to start doing Perc overdubs. And my first one is to go back to that first drum groove I played with, no ghosting in between. And I'm going to go do his 16th note part on the snare. First, I'm going to do it with sticks, not snicks. What are snicks? I'm going to do it with sticks. Using my Magnetone snare that Magnetone built for me. You can separate the top and bottom, and it's really cool, like a mahogany bottom and a maple top. It's got kind of a gushy sound, got it taped up a little bit, and we're going to try this. First with sticks, then with brushes. I'm going to start just before the turnaround where it comes in.
Knows I need a friend. In a hot spring, new dream, we'll start another band. Play it, boys.
All right, pretty simple pattern. I was purposely accenting the first of each 16th note grouping, so da-da-da-da-da-da-da seemed to kind of propel the groove best. Now I'm going to try brushes. It's going to add a little bit more subtlety. He can use this instead, or I don't know, maybe on top of. We'll see. It's just an option, right?
Knows I need a friend. In a hot spring, new dream, we'll start another band. Play it, boys.
Okay, now the really fun part. This is where a track really starts to come together because we're going to add a bunch of percussion overdubs to this. Anytime a track kind of has this organic feel, it's really cool to be able to add some things that support the vocal, that support the other instruments, that add a little bit of ear candy for the listener, and that's what we're going to do now. I am set up to do some percussion overdubs. I've closed the hall door back there because we don't want any of that reflection getting back into the microphone. We want these to be pretty dry. and most of them are self-explanatory. I'm going to do them all in one fell swoop and record them all. You'll just see snippets of it, though, as it goes down. No need for you to sit through the whole thing. When you do hear them, I'll try to have it where they're already panned and level mixed and everything, so you can hear the track come together as I layer each successive piece. But this first one I will explain because it's kind of cool. Being a session player, sometimes you get to exercise your Foley artist sound creativity. So we wanted to see what we could come up with. There's this 4 on the floor part at the very beginning, and it sounds like it doesn't need to be a kick. It doesn't need to be this thunderous rock thing, but it doesn't need to be like a percussion or hand drum. So I came up with this 10-inch tom case that I had in the back, this cardboard 10-inch tom case. I took an old snare head and put over the top of it, and then I'm covering that with a towel so it kind of minimizes the flappy sound of a head that's been removed. And I'm going to hold it by the handle like that. I'm going to use this little mallet, and hopefully it's going to give us the sound we're looking for. So let's try it out. Do some overdubs.
Oh, settle down, I'll put you in my heart. Throw me like a dart, bathe me up in lithium, God knows I need a friend. Start another band, play it, boys. Settle down and do what I should. Did all I could and traveled down the world around me for the heart of the wood. Settle down, good. I'm gonna settle down, gonna settle down good. I'm gonna settle down.
Well, there you have it. In this video today, we've gone to a more or less traditional recording session in a commercial facility. We've been back here at my own smaller studio where I've recorded drum tracks with no one else around in an overdub type fashion. There are, of course, many differences in both those processes, and there are ways that music is recorded that are different even than what I've showed you today. But my goal in this was to illustrate for you what a session player does and how that differs from someone that just plays music. A session player, I think, has 3 facets to what they're able to offer that hopefully you're able to take advantage of whenever you hire one online for a remote session. The first being technique. Obviously, it's important to be good enough at your instrument to be able to express a multitude of styles and a multitude of dynamics and to be able to emote on the instrument. But that's something that tons and tons and tons of people have. There are people that are so much better at drums than I will ever be that have never done a session. So it's not just about being good. The next thing is sound. It's good to get great sounds out of your instrument and know how to do that if you're a musician, regardless if it's drums, guitar, lute, whatever. And it's great finding out about what microphones you like and what pre's you like and what helps you get that sound. But again, technique and getting the sound, those 2 things in and of themselves, that's not enough. What really makes a musician, I think, desirable to have on a track is their mind and what they're bringing to the table based on years, hopefully, of experience and music that they grew up on, and their own particular brand of creative solutions of how to take a song from nothing to something and to really add to it in their own special way without making it about them. At the end of the day, serving the song, listening to what's happening in the moment, adjusting your performance, adjusting your ideas to those of the producer and the artist to help them win with what they're trying to say and they're trying to achieve, and then be able to check out of that and then go on to the next one, the next idea. And in a way, I guess it's like acting. where you're delivering something in the moment, hopefully in the emotional vein of the original intent of the song, and then you're doing something that might be totally different. And that's a really unique thing. It's something that can easily be learned, but it takes a lot of years to get there. Hopefully, when you're working with professionals over the internet, you're looking for people that have that kind of experience. And again, it's not always about technique. It's not about pedigree. How many wonderful albums have you played on? It's about that experience, and do you like what they're able to bring to the table? And that's what I love about music. And hopefully that's something I can bring to you if you ever should hire me to do any tracks for you. I hope it's been enlightening, and I've really enjoyed making it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Chris Brush.